I think it's really important to understand it's not a black and white issue. Every mom and every pregnancy, every mental health story is going to be different, and every situation is going to be different. Your family life and what's going on in your marriage or your relationship with the dad. It can be family issues that are going on, or finances. Every step of the way, we're going to have these different challenges in life. That's part of life, but it will affect us differently. On top of the fact that we have all of these hormones and things happening, and it is a big life change. And if you're doing other big life changes while you were pregnant, like moving or buying a house or, these bigger things, then it compounds and it kind of adds to that. Reviewer of the week is Mel Knoll, and she says, extremely educational for a future birth worker. I'm about to begin the training to be a doula. I'm trying to educate myself as much as possible. I came across this podcast and I'm now binging it. I don't come from the medical field, and it's been over 20 years since I last gave birth. This podcast is really helping me to learn about current trends in becoming a new mom, as well as the up-to-date information concerning childbirth. Thanks for following along. Thank you for your review. And yes, for all of the people who work with women in any capacity in regards to birth, and you are here and you are listening, I hope you are learning a ton. If you guys have questions or things that you want me to go over as you are on your journey, please reach out. I absolutely love to be able to cover these topics from my perspective, from birth working perspective, for pregnant women and for birth workers. So that is certainly the goal, that anybody that comes here, whether it's moms getting support for themselves or other people getting support for moms who are pregnant and getting ready for birth, that is the goal of this podcast. So yes, all are welcome. And thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're getting what you need here. This episode actually came from an MEB mama, so one of our My Essential Birth mamas, and she was asking about SSRIs in pregnancy. And I think it's a great topic. I haven't covered it before. And it's one of those things that can be probably a little bit touchy, kind of on the vaccines and all of that side of stuff, circumcision, kind of touchy that way. But I do think it's really important to have the discussion. So it actually gave us a little bit of inspiration to kind of dive in and get some details for you guys, and just to research it a little bit more myself, which was really great. But mental health, especially during pregnancy, is just as important as the physical health. And that we talk about how birth is so often, the majority of it is a mental game, right? There are definitely physical things. It's a balance between the two, but a lot of it is mental. And a lot of us as moms, when we get pregnant, and we're connecting to that baby right away, there is so many internal things that are happening mentally, emotionally, and obviously physically, but those internal things that nobody else can see and that we deal with on a daily basis. And even our birth partners, as best as they are trying, could never understand, because they're just not going through it and walking through it the same way that we are. But I do want to talk about this because we do see many moms that end up on antidepressant medication or come to pregnancy and are already on these things. So let's talk about it for a second. If you're wondering what SSRI stands for, it is Selective Serotonin Reuptake Inhibitors. And the common names that you would hear for these things are like Zoloft, Prozac, Lexapro. So if you've heard those kinds of things before, they're generally used to treat anxiety and depression. And this can be during pregnancy or not during pregnancy. However, during pregnancy, they're generally prescribed when a provider determines that the benefits outweigh the risks. However, just like anything else, sometimes those risks are not detailed for us in a way that allows us to have that informed decision making. So that's kind of what I want to go over today. I want to talk about some of the benefits. I want to talk about the risks. You know how we like to break that stuff down. And I want to talk about a little bit of your alternatives, some other options that you have, because it is not uncommon for moms, whether they are taking it before or they start on it during pregnancy, to choose to not be on it for different reasons. And so I'm going to go over some of those things that, whether you are trying to get off of something like this or you're trying to avoid it for whatever the reason. Now, I want to make sure that I say right now that I'm very clearly, mental health is very important during pregnancy. And if you do choose to be on an SSRI or, whatever you choose to do for your mental health during this time, with, support and all of that stuff. There's absolutely no judgment here. This podcast episode is not about that. So if you are a mom that is on it, I don't want you to feel, stressed or judged or anything like that. This is just information. So I hope it is helpful to moms that are listening. And I want you to know how much love and support you have right here, whatever you're choosing. That's the benefit and the burden of being mom, is we get to make these big, hard decisions. And so anyways, all the respect and love to all the moms that are out there listening. Do not feel judged in any way as we go over these things. What I thought was interesting, though, is how many women are utilizing them. So 1 in 10 women are actually on antidepressants, according to the CDC, at least from 2021. They're showing that 1 in 10 women are using antidepressants during pregnancy. And overall, I feel like this could go into an entire conversation of, why is this the case? So antidepressants didn't exist until more recently in our medical care, right? On the back end of things, my mind is going, why are we needing these so much more? Has this always been an issue? And, I feel like I need to go down that rabbit hole a little bit deeper, but I do have some thoughts around that as we get going. So I will share that. But first of all, let's kind of talk about the benefits of using SSRIs. So it can be a benefit for moms who are experiencing untreated maternal depression or any kind of very serious depression during pregnancy. Now, if you've heard my story before, and I've shared it a little bit myself, I had never, ever experienced depression before pregnancy. And when I got pregnant with my son, I did. And I hadn't heard of prenatal depression before. I'd never heard that term. I didn't know it could be a thing. I mean, when I was experiencing it, I was like, okay, yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense, hormones and whatever. But I kind of say, and I put this on myself, like, we have depression within our family. And I remember thinking like you guys are faking it. And you can judge me all you want for this, guys, for this comment. But I was like, come on, like, just stop being so sad. Like, get up, do life. Like, this is like for attention or something. And maybe not to that extreme, but I remember being like, come on, that can't be real what you're saying, because I had never experienced it. And then during pregnancy, I did. And I mean, just this like heavy, like physical burden, this weight of like sadness. I would go through periods where I just felt like dark, and like deep darkness would be the only way that I could describe it. And it was scary because I was like, what is this? Why do I feel like this? Why am I crying randomly and like really upset? I could not get out of my funk. My husband was worried about me. He ended up doing all the research that he could at the time on it. This is like 16 years ago, 17 years ago now. And we did the best we could, right? At the time, it was like, okay, scents are really good, which was so true, because I was like really drawn to like good scents. And so we went and got candles and stuff, and we, know a little bit more about candles and things now, but we did the best with what we could, right? I think we went on a fish oil supplement. There were like little things like that, but we certainly understand things a little bit better now. Prenatal depression is something that moms hear about a little bit more now. You might not hear that with your provider, but if you're following anything, like you're listening to this podcast or things like this, I hope that you're going to hear it more and more often. Even the Instagram accounts and stuff like that. These are things that we talk about now, and that's really important. There is a side of it where I think we can talk too much about it. We put too much weight on it. We create something or more of something than would otherwise be there. And so I think it is a balance. It's definitely something that I think is important to talk about. We want to keep it up there, but we don't want to focus on it as more than we need to, because I think we can kind of end up steering ourselves that direction, even if we wouldn't have gone fully that way. So keep that in mind too, as we're talking about these things. But maternal depression itself, having nothing to do with taking anything, can lead to things like preterm birth or a low birth weight baby or poor bonding. And these are all very serious things as we're talking about the SSRIs as well. SSRIs might also reduce the risk of maternal suicide, which is a leading cause of maternal death postpartum, which I thought was interesting. That was interesting for me to look at. We hear about postpartum hemorrhage and all the physical things. However, it is one of those things that we that we look at for mom's postpartum. And so if we're not dealing with mom during her prenatal period and helping her during her prenatal period, then we have greater instances, especially as the hormones, are adjusting and stuff, and we've got new floods of different hormones and stuff postpartum, then we can see more of an issue there. So treating or taking care of mom prenatally is very important. And there are every mom is going to have, I think it's really important to understand, it's not a black and white issue. Every mom and every pregnancy, every mental health story is going to be different. And every situation is going to be different. Your family life and what's going on in your marriage or your relationship with the dad. It can be family issues that are going on, or finances. Every step of the way, we're going to have these different challenges in life. That's part of life, but it will affect us differently. On top of the fact that we have all of these hormones and things happening, and it is a big life change. And if you're doing other big life changes while you were pregnant, like moving or buying a house or, these bigger things, then it compounds and it kind of adds to that. And I think too, I'm just going to speak for myself, but especially when I was a bit younger and having my babies a little bit younger, I haven't lived a lot of life. And I do think I was like, I feel like I'm really resilient and I can just push through and all this stuff. And I didn't prioritize necessarily like my health and my care, especially my mental health. I just kind of like went through life and things were exciting or they were hard, but no big deal. And I think that it might be something for us to look at. And especially for you young moms that are listening, I'm going to say I'm a young mom too. I'm not that much farther, but I will say within the last, 16 years or so that I've learned some things. And it is very smart for you to prioritize these mental health things. And so even though we are very resilient, even though we are very strong, and as mothers, we can do a lot, we don't have to do it all. And it's really important that we do kind of take a pause, listen to what we need, and kind of lean into that. So trust your intuition just like we trust it for our babies, and especially during labor and stuff. Trust that intuition for yourself when you're getting those little alerts or kind of flags in your mind that like this doesn't feel right, or the situation, could be different, or you're just getting these little ideas that are kind of marking it for you to tell you that something is up. Pay attention to that. If you feel guilty for needing help, or if you've wondered, am I a bad mom for taking meds? I want you guys to stop that kind of thought right now. So if you are a mom that's on those SSRIs, or you're considering being on this, that's not what this is about. We're not here to judge. We're here to understand. We're here to learn. And we want to make choices from a place of knowledge and peace. And that is what today's episode is all about. So I also want to dive into, though, some of those risks, because you have to have the information in order to be able to make an informed decision. And if you're here, that's what this podcast is all about. So let's go over some of those basic risks for mom. And remember, these are the ones that we're informed of, that we categorize and all of that. There are definitely things that are not here that different moms can and will experience that will be different risks for them. But these are kind of the basics, the generalities. And so some of those can be physical side effects, things like nausea, insomnia, weight gain, or fatigue, which some of you guys are like, wait, aren't some of those the reason that we end up in the doctor's office in the first place looking for help? Yes, they are. And you're going to hear that a lot of these are they go really similarly sometimes back and forth, and that can be a little bit tricky as well. But there's also the hormonal and neurological impacts. So because it alters the serotonin signaling, it's potentially not just affecting your mood, but that's where we get into the sleep and appetite and stress regulation. And so some of those might improve, and then the risk is that some of them could get worse. The other thing about these medications, is they do come with some amount of dependency and can have withdrawal. So it is really important that if you choose to go off of these at some point, if you choose to take them and you go off, it's usually not a cold turkey kind of thing, and especially when you're pregnant. So make sure that you're working with a provider that can help you to do this, where you lower your dosage and wean yourself off. You certainly can have that dependency and withdrawal, so keep that in mind. Another one is emotional disconnect. And again, you're like, wait, I was already having these issues. This is why I came for help. But some women report feeling numb or emotionally flat. And obviously that can impact your life in general, maternal bonding postpartum, just how you're feeling with your birth partner or interacting with other people in life. And it can lead to further depression. So that's the tricky part of these. And I've actually seen firsthand where medication was being used to help and wasn't working well or had stopped working as well. And so the dosage was upped because it had been working previously. So they thought, okay, maybe we just need to increase. And when they increased, it actually created some suicidal thoughts, suicidal tendencies. And so that is that tricky balance of trying to find an amount that works or an understanding that it could potentially make things worse. And so to be aware of that. And if your provider isn't talking to you about those things, then I hope you're hearing them here so that you know to be aware of that. The other thing I'm going to tell you is look at all the information if you choose to look into these or go on to one of them. Because even when you pick it up from the pharmacy, it'll give you a list of stuff to look for and risks and all of that. Read through the black and white because you need to be aware of those things. And so does your birth partner. I would say have your birth partner be aware of these things because they are likely to catch them before you do, because it's easy for us, especially as moms and everything that happens in pregnancy, to kind of write it off and say, yeah, that's probably just, I had a weird night last night, or I stayed up too late, or, that person said something weird to me. So, or it's just a hormonal day. And we kind of write it off, and we don't want to do that. So make sure that you and your birth partner both understand those risks, read through the pamphlet, put it on the fridge or whatever you need to do, and just keep an eye out. The other thing can be postpartum complications, and this is for moms. So slightly elevated risks of postpartum hemorrhage or preeclampsia have been noted, and enough so that it's included in the reports and information. So that is something to consider. A lot of times we're told, medication is safe. This medication is safe. We wouldn't give it to you if it wasn't safe. And their version of safety doesn't necessarily transfer all across the board as if, yes, you can take it and it won't affect anything. That's not true. If it's affecting things for the positive, it can also affect for the negative. If it's doing anything to your body, it has effects all throughout. And that's really important to note. Now, this is always the frustration in asking providers for information, and they do the best that they can most of the time. And often they don't see a ton of issues, right? Because it can be kind of on the outskirts, because the average, if we're going through a bell curve, the average amount of people are going to be okay, generally speaking, in the way of not having big, crazy episodes or, big tanks or something like that. However, these things do exist. And so when we talk to our providers and we ask questions about these things, they'll say things like, yeah, most of the time it's right. Most of the time, and it's very nonchalant and everything's fine and no big deal. And so we don't go into some of those scarier things that we want moms to be aware of. And then when mom goes home and maybe she does experience some of these things, she starts thinking she's crazy because most of the time these things don't happen. So it shouldn't be that. It's probably these other things. And now we're getting into tricky situations. So just keep all of that in mind. The other thing to know about SSRIs is they do cross the placenta. So anything that crosses the placenta goes straight to your baby. And so it's important to understand that whatever medication you're using, and for your height and weight and all of that, your baby is getting this medication as well. And so there will be side effects for a baby. And while the risks are stated that they are generally low, the risk does exist. And so it's fair that you know. So let's talk about some of the risks for baby. Neonatal adaptation syndrome, this was actually higher. It says 25 to 30% of SSRI exposed infants experience temporary symptoms like jitteriness, irritability, respiratory distress, or other issues, and feeding difficulties. Now, this can wear off over time. I think they don't consider this like a long-term effect, but even understanding once a baby is born that this is something that happens to a baby and is happening to a baby postpartum, these medications are affecting them in utero as well. So that's important to know, and then to understand or watch that happen postpartum. That can be upsetting for a mom, feeling that guilt of like, what did I do? Did I really need it? So this is why we talk about this, so that you can be sure of those things and you can say, okay, I knew that was going to happen and they're going to be okay. And, maybe we've got these risks, but I needed this. This was something that I made an informed decision, an educated decision about, and I needed this for whatever the reason. That's why we do these things. There are possible long-term neural development effects, and we have some emerging. However, it is inconclusive research, but it's kind of linking prenatal SSRI exposure to risks of autism or language delays. And so understanding that as well, we certainly in America specifically, but all over, we're seeing these spikes of autism spectrum. It's becoming like more and more of a thing. Now, there are all kinds of ideas around why we're seeing that. And so there's a lot of studying and stuff being done having to do with even processed foods and what we put into our bodies, vaccinations, medications, things like this. So, but it is something for you to be aware of and maybe even look into a little bit more, because again, with these things being so individualized, this is where I believe when we do our research, we do our best, this is where intuition plays a big part, because whatever is going to stand out for one mom might not stand out for another, but there might be a reason it stood out for you. And so if you hearing that is like, wait, that like it sparked something, then maybe that's the thing you need to dive into a little bit more and really decide, trust your intuition. Is this important or not? Is this something that I feel like is going to affect my baby? And we're not perfect at it either. So let me say that. You can do all the quote right things and still have issues, and you can do all the wrong things and not see anything. So keep that in mind. Being a mom is hard. It just is. And there's big decisions, and they affect you and they affect your baby. And it is hard, and you are strong and capable, and you will do it, and you will work through it. So be brave. Persistent pulmonary hypertension of the newborn, or PPHN. So this is a rare but serious breathing problem. It's more likely if the SSRIs are used in later pregnancy. So that is something to consider too. Perhaps if you need them in the beginning, you can kind of work on finding a way to do things differently and wean off of them later, should you choose to do that, if you and your provider decide that is the best idea. Now, what if you're on SSRIs and you find out that you're pregnant, and for whatever reason you decide you do not want to take them? So the first thing you're going to do is you do not stop them abruptly. I really want to take a moment and talk about that, because as I talked about before, the withdrawal symptoms and the dependency, that is a very real thing. And it can be harmful to you and your baby. So make sure that you talk about the options with your provider. You work on getting off of it, should you choose to do that with your provider. And maybe as you start decreasing that dosage safely, you're realizing you are okay, then you can, pop off of it, or you decrease it and you're like, okay, wait, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm having this and this and this symptom again. And then you have that conversation with your provider. But stopping abruptly can be damaging, so be very careful. Another thing to think about, or another options for moms, particularly if you are somebody that is receiving this medication, one of these medications from your OB specifically, it's not to say that they're not trying to be helpful, but they may not be the best person to help you decide if you should be on this at all or not. So working with a psychiatrist might be a better option, particularly somebody who deals with prenatal health, because that's going to be the same thing if they're just working with regular everyday women or men versus somebody who's going through hormonal changes, then that could be a little bit different too. So make sure that you seek out somebody in that regard. But even though OBs can provide these things, they're not going to have the extent of mental health training and understanding of these medications as somebody would who has been trained and specializes in it. So that's something to consider as well. Another option is to include a holistic care practitioner into your healthcare. So that would be somebody like a naturopath or a midwife who's been trained in this, or a functional medical doctor, or a functional medicine doctor. One of those might be a better option. And I would actually lead probably towards the naturopath or functional if you're going to be talking about specific to this. However, midwives, depending on who they are and what training they've had, can be a good resource. If nothing else, I would hope that they would shoot you the direction of somebody who really can help. They would at least have those people. So consider using somebody like that, because the nice thing about touching it from a holistic perspective is they're going to say, We're not just treating the symptom. We want to find the cause. So why do we have depression? Is it because of hormones? Is it because of past trauma? Is it because of chemical imbalances in our brains and bodies? What is the cause of this? And do we need to go a little bit deeper? And I want to talk about some of those holistic things that we can do, natural things that you can do if you are interested in kind of going this route, because a lot of it is very simple. And because it is so simple and even sometimes very easy, it gets overlooked because no, this is a big problem. And so there must be a big solution, but it doesn't have to be. It can be very small, simple things that make a huge difference. So number one is going to be nutrition and supplements. And they kind of go together, but I even want to separate that just a touch. Supplements can be a wonderful thing, but if we are not focusing on our diet first and what we're putting into our bodies first, then supplements can only do so much no matter what. So you know that I talk about a lot, and nutrition has been a big one for me in the last year, kind of like pushing this and getting you guys listening a little bit stronger about nutrition, because we're seeing such big effects on mom. Like we are really noticing now, like if mom doesn't have her nutrition in check, this can affect all kinds of things for her pregnancy and birth and her baby. So nutrition first, and that looks like a high protein, well-balanced diet. High protein, like a very, very minimum of 80 grams a day. But I'm going to tell you a minimum of 120 and upwards of 200 grams of protein per day, preferably not from protein shakes, but you want to get your real food in there, meats and probiotics and, all these good things, all the good things that you can from your actual diet. But they found things like DHA and omega-3s, for example, that help with depression. Well, guess where you get that? Fish, right? So if you're not eating fish a couple times a week, which I highly recommend that you do, it's very good for you. I wouldn't even worry so much about the mercury and all that stuff so much as I would the benefits of what you're going to get out of that fish. But do what you can and get some fish. If you're totally averse to fish and you're not going to eat it a couple of times a week, look into a really good fish oil supplement. That is something that you can do totally natural. They have pills. They have, if you can't stomach the chugging down some fish oil, which even when it's flavored, it can be a little bit rough. That's totally real. But think about fish oil. Vitamin D is another one. Vitamin D has been directly linked to depression. In fact, women have been suicidal and taken the right amounts, getting their vitamin D up to where it needs to be, very high amounts of vitamin D until they can get there, and it pulls them out of that. So I'm going to talk about these food things in a second, and then I want to talk about another way to do this too. But vitamin D is really important. And you know what? The majority of us are deficient because we don't spend enough time outside. The majority of us live and work in our buildings all day. I'm sitting here on my computer staring at the screen with a bright light in my face right now, and all of my windows shut. I do this too. I'm totally guilty of this too. And we're on our phones and all this stuff. We have to get outside. But the majority of us, we're not going to spend the time that we need outside. So we need something to supplement that. So vitamin D paired with K2, that's going to be the best way that you can absorb that, is what you guys should be looking at. And I think every pregnant mom should be on this. However, I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not your medical doctor. So I'm not giving you medical advice in any way. This is my personal opinion and from what I've seen. The other one is folate. Folate's a big one, right? And how do we get it? Supports serotonin synthesis. Folate's very good for us. How do we get it? We get it from meat and specifically organs, right? So if you can grab some beef liver and grind up just a touch of it, just a little bit of it, half ounce, an ounce, and throw it into your ground beef or whatever you're cooking and just kind of blend it in with things and season it. You shouldn't really taste it and you're going to get so much good out of that. If you can't stomach that, then take a really good supplement, and I'll put a link for our favorite one and a discount code in the show notes. But real food first is always going to be your best bet. The others are iron and B12. Both of those. And guess where those come from? Same thing. They're going to come from that beef liver, those organ meats. So these are things that we would have been eating a long time ago from the beginning of time when we kill an animal and, and it would be little bits of it. We just chop it up and share it with each other. And these were things that our bodies, we thrive off of them. Like back in the 50s, liver was on the menu. You know what I mean? This is stuff that people were eating. We don't do that anymore because it didn't taste good. And however, it has extremely high benefits for us. in the way of, we're literally talking about ways to come out of depression. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about as we're talking about all this food and stuff is the getting outside and moving our bodies, because we really are stuck inside too much. And if we spend more time outside in the sun, enjoying nature, enjoying water, and like just being outside, watching animals, bird watching. I'm not even joking. This might sound so kooky right now, but I'm not even joking. These things can heal you. And it's so easy for us. I mean, I don't know, even myself, right? I scroll on Instagram and I look at cute animal videos and all this stuff, and I spend time doing that. But I will tell you, myself, just the other morning, I was praying my morning prayers and I'm just like bawling, because I'm like, how much time have I spent staring at my screen instead of staring at my kids? And you guys, take this lesson from me right now, depression or not. And, I guess I'm going to bring on some late term depression for myself here, because my first baby is 16 and I have a couple years left. And I have to go back and look at everything that I have done and say, was it worth it? And a lot of it has been, and some of it really hasn't. And that's the kind of stuff that I don't want you guys to have to face. And I think we all do it. It's, natural, normal part of life. There's going to be things that we regret and things that we're really happy about doing. But I wish I would have spent a lot more time with my kids outside. And so this is something I'm telling you, all of you, to do. In fact, when women come to me and they have postpartum depression or they have prenatal depression, very first thing that I tell my moms to do is to make sure that your protein intake is appropriate. If you can, stop sugar and really limit your carbs, because those things cause inflammation, which causes depression. And then I say you need to be drinking more than enough water. So that's half your body weight in ounces of water every day. And yes, track it. You need to know what you're actually getting, both protein and water. Take your prenatal vitamin if that's what you do. And then you get outside for a minimum of 20 minutes in the sun every day. And if it's not sunny, you still go outside and you move your body. That's part of it. You have to be walking. Go walk, go curb walk, go do a little jog, go just walk around the block, get outside. And you would be surprised at how many women start to feel better doing those things, because when we're not feeling good, it's easy to stay inside, watch a show, cuddle up, close the blinds. And we completely stop all the good stuff that exists for us in nature outside that is meant to heal us and make us feel well. So if that sounds like you, do that first. Now, emotional support, there are other things that we can do to help us. And therapy is some of it. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one. That's something to look into. Interpersonal therapy, or just that one-on-one chat with a psychologist if you're not looking to deal with the medication side of things, or a psychiatrist, but somebody that can help you. There are other people that are trained in prenatal depression specifically, like just talk therapy, and that can be really helpful. Mindfulness, breath work, things like EMDR. I don't know if you've heard of any of that, but any kind of hypnosis. Even within the course that we have meditations that are use this for fear release, use this for relaxation, putting those things, those positive thoughts in your mind, finding a way to relax and be present, that can be really helpful. And along with that would be something like prenatal yoga. You guys can go online and on YouTube. There are so many videos now, but just doing something for yourself every day. And then once you learn a couple of those techniques, take it outside, do it in the sun, breathe the fresh air and look at the trees while you're doing it. But prenatal yoga can actually be really helpful, not only for depression and stuff, but I love prenatal yoga because it's going to help you guys be in tune with your body and in tune with your breath. So there is tons and tons of good that comes from something simple like prenatal yoga. The other thing you can do is herbal support. Now, you always want to do this with a provider. Those more of the natural providers are going to be way better people to talk to this about, but it can be things like chamomile and lemon balm and lavender. That can be essential oils. It can be the actual herb. You can make teas from it, or you can use it as a scent. There's different ways that you can utilize that, but they can actually, believe it or not, be really, really calming. In fact, I think it was during pregnancy with my third that I discovered chamomile. And I put that on my feet before I would go to bed, because I didn't have restless legs, but I would kind of I'd mess with my feet at night, or stretch my legs out a little bit. And maybe it is restless legs. I don't know. But I'd put the chamomile on with some fractionated coconut oil on the bottom of my feet. And I could literally feel the relaxation from my feet move up my leg. And I remember every night I would be like, this is so weird. Why does this work so well? And for other people, it doesn't. So you have to kind of of play around and see what works for you. But there are different options like that out there. Another one is magnesium. It would be magnesium glycinate that you're looking for. Citrate is the one that helps you go to the bathroom. Glycinate is the one that's more for that calming feeling and stuff. This is why we tell moms to take Epsom salt baths. So if that sounds calming and rejuvenating and relaxing to you, that's something that you can do as an Epsom salt bath. And that has magnesium in it. St. John's wort is something that is a common one for this. However, during pregnancy, they do not recommend that. Those are not gunshots. That is the thunder going off. We have a big thunderstorm coming through right now. But anyways, so those are some of the herbal things that you guys can do, and working with somebody that understands dosages and can help you through with pregnancy would be the way to go. And then there's kind of the other side of things, that spiritual and community connection. So if you are someone who feels more relaxed and connected when you are in like a more place of spirituality, whether that is you are praying or you're someone who just like can imagine the goodness and happy things, you really connect with the universe or whatever you call it, or yourself, kind of that intuition, taking time to do that can be huge. And also talking to your baby. Your baby is in there. You guys are more connected than you will ever be. And that connection will last a lifetime. And so honoring that connection and enjoying it and doing what you can to increase the love and the feeling of that can be really, really good for our mental state as well. So keep that in mind. Like we even tell moms, like especially when they're dealing with a breech baby, this is like, you need to talk to your baby. You need to tell them, hey baby, it's actually better if we could work together, and I really need you to move. I mean, you are more connected than you realize. It's pretty neat. But along with that, community support. So in my case, I was really lucky. We moved all over because my husband was military or because we chose to move, whatever the case. And we always have had good church support. So we are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'll put a link in the show notes if you're curious about that at all. They are literally all over the world. They are some of the most incredible women you will ever meet. So I did not grow up in this church, but I became a member as an adult, and it gave me an opportunity to connect with women that are just incredible. And there is so much fellowship and so much love. And so every time I have had a baby, there have been people that come by and visit and see if I'm doing okay and how can they help and would they clean my house or here's some food. But not just that, they're like other moms that I can learn from and I trust, and that we can swap babysitting. And you have to find your community. Like if it's not a church thing, fine, but go find your community. Find other moms like you that have similar interests, similar standards for how they want to raise their kids or things that you guys believe in. We're not all meant to be the same. And so go find the people that you can connect with and build that tribe. It's huge. And if you're having trouble doing that because you're depressed, because you're, an introvert or whatever the case, I'm just going to tell you to make yourself a little bit uncomfortable, because there are people out there that want to help and that you need. So that is my little push to you. One of the best places that you can go during pregnancy and postpartum is head to a La Leche League meeting. That is so easy. They're always free. They're always friendly. They're going to be local to you. They're going to be other moms, and they're going to be going through struggles and helping each other. And there is something to that when we get together in a group and we can say, this is my struggle and this is my knowledge. And we share those things that connect us as women. So you need community. That is just true. You absolutely do. And those people, if they are good people, they're going to force you out of your comfort zone a little bit, which is necessary. So we need people that are like, hey, come to the park. Hey, I noticed that you were not here. Or I remember I had a mom with my second, and I was sleeping because I was depressed, and I was sleeping till like 11 o'clock in the day and kind of ignoring even my baby that was in the crib. I'd be like, oh, I bet he'll go back to sleep, or I'd nurse and put him back in the crib during the day, things like that. And she was like, hey, we're going to the pool. I'm coming to your house. I'll be there in whatever. And it would stress me out, but thank goodness, right? Because I had to get out. You have to get out. You need somebody that can pull you out if you can't do it yourself. Along with that, journaling, prayer, meditation. Journaling is a big one. You can just write it out, get it all out, and then burn the pages if you have to, chop them into pieces, flush them, whatever. But do what you need to do to deal with the thoughts that are going on in your head, because they lose power when you get them out. So whether you're talking to somebody, talk therapy or whatever, you're journaling, you have to get them out of your head and take away that power. The other thing that might be an issue for some moms that are listening, it certainly was for me at some point, is kind of unpacking the issues of previous trauma from birth itself. So whether that was a difficult pregnancy or a difficult birth or a difficult postpartum, we can't help but if we didn't work through those things afterwards or during the time that we're experiencing them, we can't help that when the next time we get pregnant or we're getting ready for birth or we're getting close to postpartum, those things naturally will come up. So it's a really good idea. I'll attach this to the Find It and Flip It exercise to the show notes for this podcast, because this is a big one. If you have fears, if you have kind of these thoughts that come in that are like, gosh, you're not going to be a good mom, or this pregnancy is going to be even worse because this happened last time, or, this labor, if you have those things, those little like nagging thoughts, grab them, grab that fear or that negative thought, and then we're gonna flip it and turn it into two positives, right? So if the thought is something about pregnancy, you're gonna be so sick this time and you're gonna be miserable and whatever, then we're gonna turn it into, if I am sick, I'm growing the healthiest baby that you've ever seen, and I don't have to be sick because I'm gonna be doing this, whatever. I'm probably not doing good examples of this, and there's instructions on the sheet, but basically you want to take those thoughts that are fearful or negative, and we're going to flip them. We're going to get rid of them because we're going to say all the positives against them, and then they don't have power anymore. You can literally change your brain. You can change your brain. You have power to do that. And as you say those things, that literally rewires your brain. They have, like, scientifically, they can prove this. You can see the rewiring happen and the functions that happen when we put positivity into our minds. So, and that's why I'll just put a little plug here for having a really good birth team. This is why you build such a positive birth team, because those are the people that can feed you the good. And so you can live off of that goodness as you go through your pregnancy. Just to sum things up before we go, I want to remind you guys that this is a highly individual decision, and you get to make that decision, and you should have people around you that support whatever decision you decide to make. And if you feel like you can't do it alone, then you shouldn't do it alone. Make sure that you're utilizing the people around you, your birth partner, your care providers, work with people that can really help you make a decision that you feel confident and happy about. Make sure that you're with a provider that listens. This is, right? I just talked about your birth team and all of that. You should be with somebody who really cares about you and is paying attention to your needs. And so if you do have an OB and they're a little quicker with their appointments and they don't have the individualized time that you know that you need, then seek it out somewhere else. And if you are with somebody, then great, you are building that birth team wonderfully. Make sure that you create a postpartum plan now. So even if you are not experiencing the prenatal depression, just prepare for all of the hormones and everything that is happening after. Or if you are and you know that it could get a little bit crazier, don't end up in a situation where you didn't prepare and you weren't ready for those things, right? You have all the information that you need now so that you can do that. I'll put our postpartum care workbook in the show notes too. I'm just giving you guys all the things today as I'm thinking about it, because it's going to be so helpful for you to have little things that you can just like check off and say, yeah, I did this today, or I don't have to think about this because there's a worksheet here for me. That includes breastfeeding and diaper changes and keeping track of, stuff like that, as well as stuff for mom. So make sure that you guys download that as well. And then remember to trust that inner wisdom. Trust your intuition. You are so much smarter and more in tune with your body and your baby than you realize. So when you have these little things come up, just trust it and roll with it. And if you need to, reach out for help. And you can reach out to us as well. We love chatting with you guys over emails. I feel like the more I've been saying that, the more emails we're getting, which has just been a flood of goodness. But use your resources. This is like, gosh, I feel like I don't say it enough, but you have people in your life right now, including My Essential Birth, that want to help you, get into the right direction or point in the right direction or get with the right people. So use what you have near you and trust your intuition. I want to also remind you, just remember that your mental health is not separate from your pregnancy. They are together. It's at the heart of it. It is part of it. And whether your journey includes some of the stuff that we talked about, meditation and all this stuff, or medication, or a mix of both, you're doing it right. You have to trust that. You're worthy of support, you're worthy of wellness, and you're worthy of peace. And on top of that, if you guys are looking for more of that holistic, evidence-based birth prep, if you're here and you're pregnant and you want some more of that, I would love for you guys to join me in the My Essential Birth course. As I've said recently, it is all updated. We've got new everything. We've got new classes, new lessons. The nutrition section is just so solid now. I feel like every part of it has been touched with some kind of like new goodness that is going to be so beneficial to moms. Plus, we have all the new guides, the new cheat sheets, downloadables, all that stuff, and the workbook, which is always a favorite. So if you haven't thought about it already, you guys should dive in, but it's myessentialbirth.com and you can check out, we have a birth course and we have a postpartum program. So both of those. And then make sure that you're following at My Essential Birth on Instagram because we give daily tips and encouragement. And you can always reach out to me there in the DMs as well. And make sure that you share these episodes with moms who need it. So if you heard something great here today and it really resonated with you and you know that there's other moms that could benefit from it, make sure that you're sharing the episodes. But until next time, just know that you are strong, you are loved, and you're never alone on this journey. We are totally here to support you and love on you along the way.